Hello, everybody. I'm Elsie Vijaykumar. I'm going to talk to you about IELTS Speaking module. This module is common for both IELTS General and IELTS Academic categories. First, let's see an overview. This module goes for a total of 11 to 14 minutes. It is divided into 3 parts. The first part or the first session is a warm-up. The examiner will check your identity and ask you a few basic questions. The module becomes tougher as it progresses. This is a usual pattern with all the IELTS modules. First, it will be relatively easy. Then it becomes progressively more difficult or complex. The whole speaking session is recorded. This recorded audio will be used by the examiner to evaluate your speaking and give you your band score. And even after you get your final result, if you're not satisfied, you will apply for a re-evaluation. And that time, the British Council or IDP will access this audio and re-evaluate your speaking. The first part is as I told you, it's a warm-up or an identity check. So this will go on for 4 to 5 minutes. So the examiner will check your passport, they will ask your name, and they will ask you a few factual questions. I'm sorry, they will ask you a few questions and your answers have to be factual, like where you're coming from, what you're doing, all that. Okay, so your answers have to be accurate. Of course, there'll be a few general questions, such as your preference for food or clothing, or your some details about your hometown. It's important that you paraphrase the examiner's question. Say, for example, they're asking you, which is your native place? You don't tell my native place is so-and-so. You can paraphrase it. You could say, my hometown is this. I come from so-and-so place. So don't use the same words which the examiner used. So that is called paraphrasing. The second part is a long term, because here you will be asked to talk continuously for 1 to 2 minutes. And the session also goes on for a total of 3 to 4 minutes. So you'll be given a speaking topic and related points to that topic. You'll be given 1 minute to prepare. 1 minute you'll be given to prepare for speaking. And then the examiner will ask you to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. My advice to you is talk at a stretch for 2 minutes till the examiner stops you. It will not affect your band score. So after you've finished the 2-minute talk, the examiner will ask you a few follow-up questions. So based on what you talked, he or she might pick on some points, then ask you to explain it. So remember, throughout your talk, don't give long pauses throughout the entire speaking session, in fact. Because if you give a long pause, it gives an impression to the examiner that you are having difficulty in framing sentences, or you are having a problem with your English communication. Now here, I've given you a sample question which will come for part 2. So this is a prompt card. I'll give you some time, just go through this. Describe a person who has been an important influence in your life. So you could mark the keywords so that you have a good focus. Person, okay, who has been an important influence in life. The examiner will give you a pencil and a paper to make some notes. So you can use that pencil to mark these keywords. It will help you to have a better focus. Now look at these questions. Who this person is and how long you have known him or her. Why you chose this person. How this person influences your life, and explain how you feel about him or her. Now, once you read this question carefully, you'll realize that for questions 1 and 2, you really don't have to make points, because once you have fixed a person in your mind, the answer to the first and the second question becomes obvious. You know why you chose this person. You know who the person is, so that you don't have to write it in your points. Remember, you've got only 1 minute to prepare. But the third point, you see how this person influences you. Explain your feelings for this person. So this is where you have to contemplate a bit. Okay. So remember, within that 1 minute time, you have to read the question carefully and then mark the keywords and then write only a few points which you need to elaborate and talk for 1 to 2 minutes. So it's very important that you write points. You can't read sentences. You hardly have enough time for that. And your points have to be in a logical order. Let's go back to the same question. Now, you just can't start explaining about that person and then go on to introduce a person. That doesn't seem logical. First, you have to introduce a person and then you explain. So your points have to be in a logical sequence. And don't give any memorized versions. If the examiner finds this, you will be penalized, your band score will be reduced. These examiners are experienced English teachers who have been given additional training by IDP or British Council. And it goes without saying, they will probably be good psychologists as well. By the way you talk, they can assess whether it is an original talk, whether it's a spontaneous version or it's a memorized version. And what will happen is they will ask you some questions from what you have talked. And if there's a difference between the spontaneous answers and the memorized version, they will find out, and that will reflect badly on your band score. So never give any memorized versions. Let your talk be original. And here also whenever the examiner asks you a question, you need to give a paraphrased answers. Don't borrow words from the examiner's question. Moving on to part 3. Here, it's an in-depth discussion. Okay. This goes on for 4 to 5 minutes. Here, you're not given any time to prepare. Remember, part 1 is relatively simple. You're asked some basic questions. There, you don't have time to prepare, but there's those questions are simple. So you don't have time to prepare. In part 2, you have 1 minute to prepare and 2 minutes to talk. In part 3, this is the most complex part of the speaking test. Here, the questions are also more detailed or more complex, and you don't have enough time to prepare. You have to talk spontaneously. This gives the examiner the opportunity to accurately assess your fluency. Remember, only your English is rewarded. They are only going to assess your English. The content doesn't matter. If they're asking you any questions, probably if it's related to your profession or your experience, don't try to put in a lot of scientific words or jargon, and don't make it more complicated. Don't make it sound academic. Remember, they are all English teachers. They are only trying to assess your English skills, your grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, and fluency. They will not know something that is of a high academic content. They really can't understand rocket science. Okay, so see to that you are conscious about your English and not about the knowledge. And the answers that you give have to be direct, reasonable, and logical answers. Say, for example, they're asking you, why do people do a lot of shopping online nowadays? Why do people do a lot of shopping online nowadays? So you have to give a clear-cut answer. Nowadays, a lot of people prefer to shop over the internet because it is convenient for them. It saves them a lot of time and energy, especially for couples with young children. It is quite helpful for them to order things online rather than spending a lot of time going to a grocery store or a shopping mall. So you can give a logical answer. If your answer is vague, your band score will be reduced. So let your ideas or let your points be relatively simple and relevant, and explain those points clearly. Okay, relevant points explained clearly. So that is what is your speaking module. And I would advise you to talk at a slow, steady pace, just like how I'm talking to you right now. You can maintain a calm, slow, steady pace when you're talking. So this gives you adequate time to think. It gives you adequate time to come up with points or ideas. There are some students who get nervous and talk fast, and then they run out of conversation. They run out of points, and that will be a long pause, and that will reflect poorly on your band score. So you will get a low score if you have long pauses or if you stumble a lot. Okay, so let's do a small speaking quiz. I would advise you to have a piece of paper and a pen with you to write the answers. So this is a gap filling exercise. This is one of the formats, question formats that come in IELTS exam. In other words, it's called fill in the blanks. Okay. The first question. There are dash parts to the speaking module. How many parts are there in the speaking module? Second, the computer-based test students take it. How? How do they take this? Third, response to a question needs to be dash. When the examiner asks you a question, your response has to be dash. There's an exact word. If you don't remember it, go back and check in the video. Next, questions on general topics will be asked in part dash. In which part of IELTS speaking you will have questions on general topics. Next, entire speaking module is dashed by examiner. What action is taken for the speaking module by the examiner? Next, in part 2, you need to talk continuously for dash minutes. What's the total duration you need to talk, or what's the maximum duration you're allowed to talk in part 2? So you can pause this video, write your answers, and then check it. Let's check the answers. There are 3 parts to the speaking module. The computer-based students also take the test offline. Whether you're taking an online test or a paper-based test, the speaking session is a one-to-one or a face-to-face session with the IELTS examiner. So it is offline, not online. Response to a question needs to be paraphrased. You have to use different words but convey the same meaning. What is paraphrasing? You are changing the words but not changing the meaning. Questions on general topic will be asked in part 3. Remember, part 1 and part 2 is related to your personal life. Part 3 is related to the world around you. The entire speaking session is recorded by the examiner. In part 2, you can talk continuously for 2 minutes. Okay. So that's the end of this lecture. I hope you found this useful. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in another class. Thank you.